So we start this practice with child's pose, and the option here for you is twofold. It's either a closed knee child's pose or a wide-legged child's pose. Now when we open the knees wide, we affect the spleen meridian along the inner legs and also the stomach channels that flow down the front of the belly. And when we close the legs in this pose with the deep breath movement in through the belly, we're massaging the organs not only in the belly but also in the chest cavity, because there's that compression from the tops of the thighs up towards the belly. Another option here for you is to find a twist in this pose. So ideally, if you are looking to find a twist, you will have your knees wide. This will give you a wider base point to allow for the twist to feel a little bit more comfortable. I have found when the knees are close together or touching, the twist can happen. It's not impossible, but there seems to be less space for the shoulders to rotate, for the chest to rotate. So go ahead and find a comfortable child's pose. And if you are finding a wide-legged child's pose, find that as well. You want to keep your hips back near your feet. So keep your hips as low down as possible. If you need to place a blanket or a block underneath your hips to lift the hips higher than the knees, you can go ahead and do that. And so you're going to twist to the left, take your right shoulder towards your left knee and rest it on the floor with your arm outstretched. And if you can, your left hand can reach around and rest on your lower back, or come around to your inner right thigh. And here you rest your head on the floor, or even your upper right arm. And we stay in this pose for a minimum of 3 minutes. Make sure that the breath continues slow and deep. You may want to, in your mind, trace the Spleen Meridian. So bring your attention to the inside of the big toe and run your awareness along the inside of the foot, up the inside of the ankle and the shin, up to the knee, and then along the top of the thigh, entering the abdominal cavity just above the pubic bone. Connecting to the spleen and the stomach. To the root of the tongue. Maybe you feel that the body has started to relax even more. Stay here for one more deep, beautiful breath. And to come out, release the left hand down as you exhale. And as you push into the floor to come up, slide your weight over to the other side, moving the left arm over to the right. And rest on the left shoulder as you take your right arm back. Stay here for 3 full minutes. In Chinese medicine, the spleen is essential to the process of digestion and distribution of nourishment. So if the spleen's qi is strong, the food's essence is spread throughout the body. If the qi is weak, the body becomes undernourished and weak. This same distribution occurs for water too. The spleen ensures that there is proper hydration of our cells and the elimination of water through the kidneys. Because our blood is mostly made of water, the spleen then directly affects the quality of our blood. And it also controls the proper functioning of our limbs and maintenance of our skeletal muscles. It affects our mental function and especially our intention, our willpower, and our awareness of possibilities for change. Weakness in the spleen can often be seen in the lips and the mouth. If things taste good, then the spleen is working well. If the spleen qi is weak, worry may be a constant companion. Now, worry weakens the spleen, and it also creates stomach problems. But if the spleen is strong, we find great stores of creativity. And so our intention with this practice, with the spleen and stomach meridian practice, is to help nourish spleen energy so that we can step more into creativity and out of worry. It's just such a beautiful way for us to support our bodies, to support us. Just a few more breaths here. Take a big inhale. And as you exhale, bring the right hand back to the floor. Inhale as you come up, pushing down through the right hand. And with your weight on both hands, bring the knees back together, resting in a closed-legged child's pose. Stay here for a few more breaths. And so here, the breath is moving through the back of the rib cage. The mind is calm. The digestive system is being stimulated through the deep breaths. And if you feel you have any tension in through the jaw or the neck, or even the shoulders, can roll your head from side to side, releasing any tension in through the neck. Whenever you are ready, start to roll up to a seated position. And we'll prepare now to move energy in the stomach. And so you'll take your hands and rub them in a clockwise direction over your belly. And so your belly button is the center of the circle. And when you look down to your feet act as the 12 o'clock on a watch. And so you rub your belly up the right side, down the left side, and up the right side and down the left side. Slow, intentional movements here. See if you can do this 7 times. And when you've done your 7 rounds, just find some stillness. This is a practice in itself, this learning to be still. Okay, now find yourself in a child's pose again. This time knees touching and arms wrapped around the legs with the forehead resting on the floor, or if you'd like, place a block or a blanket under the forehead. The ankles are together and the fronts of the shoulders drop forward as your arms are relaxed by the side. This is a pose called Balasana, child's pose, and can be practiced both in the Yin practice of yoga and also through the Yang practice of yoga. Now this posture gently stretches the spine so it has a natural counter to any sort of back bend. And although we haven't done a back bend yet, we're about to move into it. And so just feel the concave in through the back of the heart, as if the heart through the back body is the highest point in this pose. Ideally, the head is lower than the heart in this pose. Allowing gravity to draw blood to the brain. And this is a beautiful posture to come into when you are feeling cold or vulnerable, or if you feel like the practice that has been suggested isn't for you on any particular day for any particular reason. Child's pose is a beautiful pose to come into. And now let's bring in a little bit of movement. So reach your arms forward, spread your fingers wide, and come up to hands and knees pose. And when you do this, allow the belly to sink down and the chest to lift as you open up into cow posture. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, press back into child's pose with your arms staying exactly where they are. We call this extended child's pose. And as you breathe in, find cow posture, and as you breathe out, child's pose. And do that about 7 times, just allowing for the breath to initiate your movement. The breath initiates your movement. And so allow the breath to lead you and to guide you. And then once you've completed those 7 rounds, find child's pose, tuck the toes under, and press into downward facing dog. You may want to pedal your feet out, your legs out, very gently allowing the backs of the legs to lengthen, but not compromising the length of the spine. So if you feel like your legs are a little bit tight, then I'd rather have the knees bent here and the spine long than a kink in the spine with long legs. And then find stillness here for a while. And pressing into the hands, allowing the full palm to press down into the mat. Whenever you're ready, on the next inhale, step your right foot forward in between your hands, and then drop your left knee to the ground and untuck your toes. And now you have the option to stay here in what we call a low lunge, or if you would like to take this lunge to the next level, you could tuck your toes under, keeping your right knee over your right ankle. Softly, gently lift the back knee off the floor into a high lunge. If you're finding this posture rather difficult and you would like some support whilst in a high lunge, you can bring your hands to the top of your right thigh for some support, or else lift your arms up to the sky. Now this pose increases strength and flexibility in your feet, in your legs, in your hips, whilst also promoting your capacity to focus. So a long spine here. There is actually a little back bend in through the lower spine here as you lift your chest and your arms up. And your gaze is straight ahead. This is going to help you increase your mental strength and your focus. The chest is open, the legs are working nice and hard here. And the entire body is energized. Take one more deep breath here. And then the exhale, bring your hands down to frame your front foot and step your right leg to meet your left at the back of the mat, pressing back into downward facing dog again. Remember, child's pose is always there for you if you need some support. Otherwise, down dog it is. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Now, this is an asana, a pose, that regardless of how long you've done yoga, you will never outgrow it. It combines the benefits of an inversion, an arm balance, a forward bend, and also a restorative pose, all rolled into one. So you're here for another 2 rounds of breath, please. Your fingers are spread wide to distribute the weight evenly across the hands. Next, you'll step your left foot in between your hands and feel free to stay in this low lunge variation if you like. That's with the back toes untucked, the left knee directly on top of the left ankle. And if you're in the low lunge, you still have energy pulsating through those legs. So you're not simply hanging out in the hips here. You're pressing into the front foot and the back knee and feeling as if you're scissoring the legs together, even though you're in this low lunge variation. But if you are going for the high lunge, go ahead and lift up. Option to have the hands on the front thighs, option to lift the arms up to the sky, and holding here for a few breaths. Notice how the breath has started to change, if at all. Notice what's coming up for you in your mind. What are the thoughts that you're thinking? Is there a way that you can bring your attention right back to the breath and the body and the present moment, the experience you're having right now? Take one more beautiful deep inhalation here. And as you exhale, bring your hands down to the mat, framing your front foot. If your back knee is on the mat, lift it ever so slightly and step your front foot to meet your back foot in a plank position. You have the option here to drop the knees to the ground or up on the toes. Strength in the legs, shoulders over wrists. We're going to hold plank here for a few rounds of breath. If you need, you can come down onto the elbows for an elbow plank. This is a strong stabilizing pose that works muscles from the deepest layers inside of you to the most superficial. So it strengthens your shoulders and the core muscles, your abdominals, your back, your pelvic floor. And here we are building heat in the body. We're creating mental resilience, determination, strengthening the spine, stabilizing the body. Breathe. Remember to breathe. Try and make sure that the hips are not piked up or sagged down. A beautiful long line between the shoulders and the ankles, with the shoulders either over the elbows or the hands. Beautiful. Take one more breath here. And then drop the knees to the ground and press into child's pose, please. in child's pose, focus on the belly. Focus on the stomach. And paired with the spleen organ, the stomach receives and digests your food. It stores food and water. And if your stomach qi is weak, the food stagnates and all manner of digestive problems arise. And so our intention here is to draw attention through to the stomach and send it these thoughts of strengthening stomach qi. So these thoughts are just simply awareness, or they're little prayers or blessings to your stomach area. A sense of gratitude for the stomach itself and also the stomach meridian. Take one more breath here and then press back up into plank position. Again, choosing knees or elbows, a combination of the two. And here we're going to make sure that the crown of the head reaches forward. That if you're on your hands, that the elbows are soft and not locked. Your hands are under your shoulders. You're pressing into the arms, into the hands. Press into the heels, lengthening through the backs of the legs. Spine's in neutral, your core's engaged. Take one more breath here. And as you exhale, drop your knees to the ground. Hover your shoulders over your fingers and lower down through half chaturanga so that your belly is completely rested on the ground. We're going to prepare to come into locust pose. There are a few different ways to do locust. Turn your palms to face down, resting on the ground on either sides of your hips. Roll the shoulders back and down. Lift your chest up off the ground, the feet pressing firmly into the mat. The knees are slightly lifted off the mat, so the legs are engaged and the back muscles are lifting your chest up off the ground. And release back down to the earth. That is half locust. As you breathe in, you have the option to come up into half locust again, or this time lifting the legs along with the chest. Breathing in to come up. Your gaze is forward. You're squeezing the shoulder blades together, lengthening the spine as you lift. I like to have my toes flointed here, so a point in through the ankles but a spreading through the toes, and my arms are reaching back. And release. And for the third time, coming up into your variation of locust pose. Either half or full. This pose is strengthening through the back body. It helps to relieve any sciatic nerve and lower back pain. And it strengthens the back muscles and the buttocks and the thighs, which is so helpful for improving posture and core function. And release. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, if you feel you've had enough of a back bend practice, you have the choice to stay exactly where you are, lying face down on the earth with your head turned either to the left or to the right. If you'd like to continue and do locust pose, you can. go for a fourth round. But if you'd like to create a little bit more heat in the body through another back bend, we're going to lift up into bow pose. Okay. A bow pose is a bend through the knees, grabbing the outer ankles, and then lifting up through the chest, kicking the feet into the hands. You're balancing on your belly. And release. And we'll come up again. Just a note on your arm position, your hand position. If you were to lift your thumb up to the sky and wrap your arms backwards from there, you'll feel that there's a real opening through the shoulder, the front of the shoulder. And so you really want to feel an extension through the front of the shoulder through bow pose. And if you need to rotate your hand to grab hold of the ankle, the outer ankle, that's fine, as long as the shoulders are open. Or if you want to create a little bit more of a stretch through the front of the shoulders, you can grab hold of the inner ankles and lifting up. This is working through the lung meridian, pericardium, and a beautiful stretch through the front of the shoulders. And release. And a third time, remembering that you always have the option to rest. But if you're coming up for a third time, take a deep breath in and up you go. With this stretch through the front of the shoulder being the lung meridian, this connects through to the stomach meridian as well. So there is a connection. As you're breathing in, allow that opening through the chest to invigorate the lungs. Breathing in and breathing out, releasing. Let your hands rest on either side of your hips. Turn your head one side or the other. And just stay here for a few breaths. After creating the shape of a bow in your body, after stretching through the chest and the shoulders, which can be quite tight if you're working over a desk most days, this pose promotes good digestion as you are rocking or balancing on the abdominal and internal organs. It also stretches through the thighs and the hip flexors and stimulates the heart energy center through this back bend. Preparing for pigeon pose, pressing into child's pose, tuck the toes under, downward facing dog. Bending the knees, look forward, stretch through the legs, stretch through the legs. And then draw the right knee into the chest and step the right knee in between your hands. hands. Option to draw the knee closer to the right hand and the right ankle closer to the left hand, squaring off the shin to the front of the mat. Now for some of us, that is really intense. So the closer your right ankle is to your groin, the lighter this is on your hips. Now there's no point in trying to shove your hips into this position. Every one of us has a different configuration in our hip joint. And the idea here is to have the stimulation of Qi for the stomach and spleen meridian. So this is not a practice of pigeon pose where we are targeting the hips per se. This is a practice with the intention of opening up the channels in the body to allow for the free movement of Qi. So with that in mind and that intention, allow this pose to be soft and beautiful and expansive. This pose in particular stimulates the spleen meridian, the groin of the front leg and the inner thigh of the back leg. Take a few breaths here. Allow the body to relax. Now, the external rotation of the front hip affects the gallbladder meridian as well. And this gallbladder meridian runs down the side of the body along the outer hip, and then also places pressure on the groin to nourish the liver meridian. So there's a lot going on in this pose. If you feel like you need some support under that right hip, then you can place a block, a blanket, a cushion, a pillow underneath that right hip. Now, over time, you may feel that you want to rest more and allow the body to lie down even flatter. That's totally fine, you can do that, but sometimes it becomes quite intense. So if that is the case for you, you can rest your weight up on your hands, and this will also prevent any stress to your front knee. Take another 2 deep breaths here. And then to come out, inhale up onto your hands. Exhale, draw your right foot behind your right thigh and rest back into child's pose for a few moments between the sides. pressing into downward facing dog on your next exhale, and repeat on the left. So now you'll bring your left knee forward, place your shin and knee on the floor in front of and to the left of your left hip. And if your left thigh doesn't rest on the floor, or you have a sensitive knee, you can place a folded blanket or a pillow under your left hip. Something I didn't mention on the other side is that if you want to check your back leg, make sure that that right leg now is behind your right hip while allowing the right front hip to face the floor. So there's a lengthening through the back leg and a rolling down through that hip. And again, you can rest your weight on your hands for all or part of the time to prevent any stress on your knee. But if you wish, you can come down onto your forearms. Push your elbows into the floor to shift your weight back into the hips. I like to feel really heavy in the hips here and light on the front knee. So you're not feeling heavy in the knee and light in the hips. It's the opposite way around, okay? If you feel like this pose is risky to your knee, avoid it altogether. Just pressing back into child's pose if that feels better for you. We're here for at least 3 minutes. There's a lot of emotion that we store in our hips. Really allow whatever it is that's in your body to come out, to be processed, to be transmuted and transformed. The deeper it is in our body, the more havoc it plays. Right? So we really want to allow this deep set energy that may have stagnated to rise to the surface for us to work through it, or to release it at least. Take a couple of more breaths here. Now, physiologically, this deep hip opener opens and stretches the piriformis muscle, which can help reduce sciatic nerve pain. And there's a gentle stretch of the chest, and because of that, it helps to improve our breathing, our breath. It also increases mobility in the spine and the lower back. Great for counteracting long periods of sitting. Start to gently come out of the pose. This time swinging your right leg around to lay on your back. Lie flat on your back. Find some stillness here. We're not going into Shavasana just yet. But this is just an interlude, just a brief moment of allowing the body to rest. And we'll come into revolved belly pose, Jatara Parivartanasana, excuse me. This is one of the mainstays of any yoga practice, used most frequently towards the end of the practice to release the spine and massage the internal organs before we go into relaxation. And so draw your knees in, bend your knees, and you can bring them in once at a time or one at a time to your chest. Inhale, and with the next exhalation, roll your knees to the right side. And if you need support, rest them on a pillow. You can extend both your arms, opening the space between your shoulder blades. And I say resting your knees on a pillow because this just lessens the twist. It's a more gentle version of this twist, supporting the knees and the thighs. Now this pose is a posture where you can literally let it all hang out, right? This is a good opportunity here for you to relax completely. The more you relax and breathe into the belly, the more the internal organs will be massaged and squeezed. We're here for another 30 seconds. We're going to roll to the other side, so draw the left knee back to center and open it to the side until you feel the weight of the leg, drawing the right leg off the floor as well. And now take the other side. If you feel stiff, try rolling from side to side for 10 brief passes before attempting to hold the pose. And this will loosen the body and allow you to be a little bit more comfortable. "30 seconds more. And releasing. Draw the knees back into the chest.